Good morning. I'm going to be very quick. I actually like panel discussions where the people in the audience ask questions and we respond to the things that you want to know. I don't feel that I'm somebody that's important enough for you to want to necessarily hear everything that I think, because I think it's very important that I hear what you think, and then I can share what I think from my experience that will help you accomplish the goals that are specific to you. Okay? Because my job is not to come here to tell you what to do. I've never been a person to do that. However, I think that it is my job as a man who is in his, I guess I'm now in my late 30s, I'm 36. It's important for me to share what I know and to talk to you about what I know so that it helps you make your decisions. Now, one of the things that I do, I'm a finance professor. Some of you may know that, I don't know. I also do a lot of things related to social activism. But one of the things that I think has either helped me or hurt me, I don't know which one, when it comes to doing my form of activism, is the fact that I have no problem with capitalism being used as a tool for activism. In fact, I find that to be a more effective tool sometimes for activism, as long as you understand what money can do and what it can't do for you. I've never been one to advocate, quote unquote, selling out, whatever that means. And to me, selling out is not when you take money from the highest bidder. It's when you take money from the highest bidder and you give up something that's valuable to you, something that affects your integrity, something that's important to you. Okay, so I don't feel qualified to judge who sold out and who hasn't. I think that's really up to you. Now, what I'll say real quick is that sometimes when you talk about activism, and I've sort of stepped out, I deliberately, when I became a professor, I said, I do not want to go in my office and write a bunch of research papers that nobody ever reads. I want to step out into the world, and I want to use what I have and what I've learned to reach out and help black people. But at the same time, I never wanted to be broke. I never wanted to become a social worker. It doesn't mean that I have a problem with people who are social workers. I sound like a social worker a lot, especially when I'm talking to my cousins and people who are in prison, et cetera, my family, because these problems hit me directly from home. But one thing I can say is that, you know, one thing that happens a lot when I deal with activism, I've been blessed with opportunities to work with people like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton or whatever, like the Don Imus situation. We were all on the phone together the same day the story broke, and we were talking about how to deal with Don Imus. And I came in as the finance professor and said, look, I know I didn't march with Dr. King, and they know I didn't march with Dr. King, and so sometimes when you didn't march with Dr. King, you can be thrown out as part of the young generation that's all into hip-hop, that doesn't know what they're talking about. But I said, but you know, with all due respect, I assume you invited me to this conversation because you wanted me to add something that other people might not have thought about. And we were on the radio when we were talking about this, and I said, actually, America is about money. America is more capitalist than it is racist. It's more capitalist than it is sexist. It's more capitalist than it is democratic. I said, if you want to get Don Imus off the air, go after the money. Go after his corporate sponsors. When the sponsors start walking away, a white man will abandon another white man in a second if he's not making money anymore. Okay, and that's not a racist statement. That's just a human nature statement. All human beings work toward obtaining resources. When you talk about the Gina 6 situation, I remember that. I remember specifically being on the phone with a good friend of mine in Florida who called me and she said, Boyce, did you hear about what's going on down in Louisiana? And she told me about the story, and I said, oh my God, that's terrible. You know, I mean, people, you know, I get a lot of stories like that on a regular basis, but this was extraordinary. I said, why isn't anybody covering this? Why isn't the media hitting this? This was about 6 months before the protests actually took place. So I had done a lot of work with CNN, and I knew the producers pretty well, and I called them and I said, there's this thing going on down in Louisiana, and you guys need to cover this. And you know what they said? They said, well, you know, that's interesting. Thank you. We'll take that into consideration. And they never covered it. It wasn't important. But what happened was, you saw the emails. I'm sure everybody in this room knows somebody who got an email from the organization, that colorofchange.org and other groups, that were sending out these messages, spreading like a virus, saying, hey, this is going on and we got to do something about it. And guess what? The groundswell was so strong that eventually the CNN producers were calling and saying, hey, would you like to talk about this Gina 6 thing? I mean, I'm like, well, you know, you mean that thing I called you about 6 months ago and you acted like it wasn't important? But it became important because people used the power of the internet to engage in a new form of activism. Understand, I know you're attorneys, and I know that you understand laws and you respect laws and you live by laws, and understand also, though, that that's going to lead to a type of thinking. Professors think a certain way, doctors think a certain way, attorneys think a certain way. I'm a believer that in addition to respecting laws and understanding laws, you have to also be willing to make some rules and laws as you go along. Not necessarily legislative laws. I'm talking about new laws and rules of how you go about getting the job done. The world has changed dramatically, and the paradigm for activism has shifted dramatically. I'm a believer that we will go so far. We've come a long way when it comes to political activism. We've come a long way by voting for the right person and engaging in forms of social protest, which we should continue to do forever. But understand this, in America, we are a political minority. We all know that. We will never have enough votes to get Barack Obama or anybody else into the White House. Because if we had that kind of majority, then no telling what kind of president we'd have. I don't know who the president would be, Louis Farrakhan or something, I don't know. But my point is, maybe not, I'm just kidding. But my point is that capitalism and money allows you to multiply your vote. The Jewish community is not a dominant political or the dominant majority in terms of population, but they've got some play when it comes to the money. Okay? So my point is to think about how you go about activism. I understand most of you want to go into your profession, and some of you want to make money. And sometimes people make you feel that trying to make money is a crime, that it's bad. Oh, you're going to the dark side to work for the big law firm or whatever. I don't think you're necessarily going to the dark side as long as you don't let your soul become dark. As long as you don't get eaten up by the dark side, if you will, or whatever the case may be, as long as you don't think that your whole life revolves around making another dollar. When you get to that point, I truly feel sorry for you. But if you are a person that works to obtain power and resources and access to capital and all these other things that matter in America, and you make a commitment to using that to advance the causes of your own people, then I think that's okay.